All right, I had a request from a friend to do a quick enamel airbrushing or enamel weathering video. I've already done the airbrushing on this guy. I'm very happy with how it turned out. The colors look pretty neat. There's enough variation there that it gives me some stuff to play with. Normally, if I was doing a if I was doing weathering, I would have done some acrylic chipping at this point. I don't know if I'm going to do that um, because of how small this scale is. If I like apply some chips with like a sponge or a brush or something, they're probably going to look a little bit oversized. And maybe this is a newer ATST. It hasn't gotten banged up quite so much. Plus, you can do a lot with enamels anyway. So I've got some odorless enamel thinner. Also, keep in mind, just because it's odorless, it does not mean it does not have fumes. If you keep this out long enough, you're going to start feeling a little woozy. I'm going to put that kind of off camera out of the way so that I don't bump it and knock it over into all of the other 1,000 projects I have going on right here. I have some dark streaking grime. I have dust effects. This is an older one. And then some starship streaking. And I just bought this on a whim, but I like that color. Ideally for streaking, I think oil paints give you a little bit more flexibility, but the ones that I have right here are ready to go, so that makes things a little bit easier. Plus, the techniques are pretty similar. It's just you get a little bit more playtime with oil paints. And as usual, the top has glued itself on there. So we're gonna undo that. Sometimes you'll get like a little film at the top. In fact, quite often you'll get a little film at the top. Don't worry about that. We're gonna be painting directly out of here. So I'm just gonna dip in, just get a little bit on there. And to do a streak, figure out where you want the streak to start. So I'm gonna start the streak like right there. I'm just gonna put just a little bit more paint right there. And for this streak, I'm gonna do the drag down method, which is gonna be nope, I'm dragging it down the wrong way. That's okay. I'll fix that. That's good enough. So then I'm gonna get this flat. This is an angled flat brush, angled shader, but I'm gonna dip it in, and then we're gonna blot it off. And you can see how much you don't really need a lot. Normally you could wait till this is dry, but for this purpose, and honestly, I'm just dragging it down the side right there. And there's a streak. I want to get it a little bit more perpendicular to the actual floor of the ship. So I'm going to drag it a little bit over that way. And there's a streak. There you go. Super simple. If you don't want to draw it out with this brush, you can just as easily add it, say, we're going to add one right there. I'm just going to add some paint, use the same brush. I'm not going to redip it. And we're just going to go straight down. There we go. On that side. Come back on this side and try to straighten that up just a tad. There we go. A couple of streaks. Very simple. If I wanted to use this more as a wash, I could easily go in and, just and I would get another brush like this one, dip it in, blot off just a little bit, and then just kind of dab it so that it flows. And there we go. Now you've got kind of like some shadows in there, and you've got the wash. And then just with the same brush, I keep blotting it off a little bit. We'll pick up anything that came up on the surface. That'll take a little bit longer to dry. The streaks, though, are pretty much dry, but they're not sealed. So you could come back and easily wipe those off. You really need to give enamels like a day or so to completely like harden on the surface so they're not gonna rub off just because you're touching the model. Well, let's go to this side and let's use a different color. Put up the starship streaking. One thing I find is that if I leave them out, they tend to, oh, this is a new one. They tend to get knocked over. So yeah, this one has a complete seal on the top. So I'll show you how to deal with that. Just break the seal. It does not matter. You can try to remove it if you want to. Probably it's not going to remove. Probably it's just going to sit in there, and enamels have a shelf life. Some last longer than others. Let's see, let's clean this brush off a little bit. All right, so this is obviously kind of like a dark green. Ooh, that might be good for indoor. All right, I'm gonna do, I kind of want to do the same area, but I'm also gonna do one up here. So I'm gonna drag it down that way. And those are a little bit awkward right now, but we're gonna fix that. Blot the brush off. And we just accidentally created 2 streaks right there, which I am perfectly fine with. Now it's going to be quite a long streak. I'll try to feather that in just a little bit more. All right, I'm going to call that one, I'm going to say that's, oop, did I bump the camera? I bumped the camera, sorry. I'm going to say that those are pretty good. Now we're going to go to this one. This one is much heavier. Sometimes you want to brush upward, sometimes you want to pull it a little bit further downward. It kind of depends upon which direction you want to go. If you pull it upward, you're going to be pulling more of the paint upward, more of the pigment upward, and you might accidentally shorten the streak a little bit. Now, if I waited for this to dry, you would actually get some different kinds of streaking. You would get it would be a little bit harder to manipulate. Now at that point, I just drug the brush all the way over it, like the flat side of the brush, and that faded it in. And then I can come back along the edges, and if I want to tighten it up a little bit, I can, because I thought that first streak was a little bit too powerful. We've got 2 streaks going on right there. The one right there, I think that's pretty good. I may come back in and, obviously I'm going to add some more weathering, but that kind of gives you an idea about how to do that. Now I'm going to do one more thing while I still have some time. We're going to take one of my favorite colors, my favorite things to get, which is dust effects. Just like all the others, it's sealed on the top. There's a little bit of film, not really, but a little bit of film. Try not to get that stuff on me. So for this, I'm going to get my big brush here. First, I'm going to push that thing back down where it needs to be. Collect up some of that clump. Ooh, that's very clumpy. This is beginning to dry out. It's so old. Okay, so for dust effects, this is like pigments and enamel thinner with a little bit of a binder, and we're just going to go along and wherever we think the dust might be collecting. I need to get a new one of these because this is getting very... That is very thick. All right. Dip my brush into some thinner. We still got some... I'm not going to blot this one off quite as much. A little bit on my finger. And then we're just going to tap where we applied it. And those deposits are going to be kind of blotted on. And that's kind of what you're going for. Yeah, that dust effects is getting really, really old. Because it's not usually, it is not usually this thick. But that's okay. I'm also going to try to get a lot of it around, right around the hatch. And I think I want to get some dark mud. Hopefully this is not as old. Probably should have just gotten some earth effects, but this is a very dark mud, so it'll be okay. I also like what is called Kursk earth. If you see that one, that's a good, it's a little bit darker than dust. It's kind of like a medium tone. Oh yeah, this is getting kind of, oh no, that's not quite as old. That still has some life in it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pick out a few little areas. I'm trying to get some of the stuff on my brush. It's kind of hard. Now I'm going to wash my brush out a little bit, blot it off, and we're going to go back in and just kind of blot around where we applied some of that. I don't want to hit the hatch because I want the hatch to stand out a little bit. But everything else I've hit with a little bit of dust, more dust than anything else, and then just a little bit of that dark mud. I've still got some of this dried up dust right here, so I could probably, if I wanted to, come in and add some more, I can. This is going to look like built on dust because of how thick it is, but that's okay. So anyway, a couple of streaks, different streaks on that side, some weathering on the top to give it a little bit more contrast. And yeah, I think that's pretty good for the day.